Hello friends, my name is Keisha, and I'm a proud member of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. I'm also a survivor of human trafficking. My trafficking began in Canada and crossed into the United States. I was stalked, hunted, and ignored by the very systems that were meant to protect me. This is why, with my father, Dale Richardson, we started the CARES Project, an Indigenous survivor-led movement for humanity. We are dedicated to exposing human trafficking, government corruption, and holding institutions accountable. The judicial branch is broken. It has failed to restrain the evils that have come upon this republic. Whether it's family court failures, weaponization of the judiciary, COVID-era harms, or human trafficking, the courts have allowed these issues to continue unchecked for too long. One of the most powerful tools we're using is the petition for redress of grievances. These are lawful constitutional actions rooted in the founding principles of this country. On May 19, 2026, a formal petition for redress of grievances was submitted to the United States Congress. This petition is demanding that Congress and the President use the powers under Article 4, Section 4 to preserve this Republican form of government by restraining these abuses pending congressional investigation. Through the CARES Project Action Plan, we are mobilizing people across the United States to strengthen this effort. This petition has been created as a template. If you or someone you love have been hurt by these same systemic failures in the courts or by government institutions, your evidence matters. When you come forward, please bring your evidence along with a copy of the petition for redress of grievances. This helps connect your story to this growing constitutional record being placed before Congress. We are asking you to stand with us. Join the CARES Project Action Plan and help us build a precedent that demands accountability and protects the God-given rights of American families. Our united voices will compel Congress to uphold the Constitution and safeguard our liberties. United we stand, one nation under God. I will close with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who will not be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CARES Project podcast. Today we have with us Mariah Cranny. I said that. That's right. Yes, who is
Yes.
an election fraud whistleblower, a survivor of trafficking, the wife of a disabled veteran, and has been dealing with the corruption of, the CPS and other government agencies, and is here to talk about that today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, can you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yes. So my name is Mariah Cranny. I am a mother of four, wife of an Army veteran from the Iraq War. He's disabled, honorably discharged. Daughter of a Vietnam veteran who served over for our country in the Marines. Granddaughter of a Navy veteran who served in World War II. So I have a lot of family in the armed services and veterans. So I have a deep love and honor for those who have served our country.
All right, so today we're going to kind of get into a little bit of your story, and you wanted to go and talk about stuff that happened to you before, or do you want to start talking about the election fraud and then kind of get into that when we talk about your kids?
Whichever way you want to go, I guess. the main thing today that we're talking about is ongoing past and current election fraud in our state. We actually have commissioners meetings where different members of the community come and share their thoughts about what they've seen involving the elections here. And a lot of people are very concerned. They feel like we don't actually have representation by people who we voted for, because they can see that the elections are chosen before the votes are even coming in.
Well, I mean, the elections are critical to having any type of free society. If you want to have a Republican form of government, then you need to have elections, because it has to be by the people, for the people, and of the people. If it's not, then you have something else, which is tyranny.
Tyranny.
And so, um, this is how this I mean, fraud, this scam, this tyrannical government gets to continue to do what they're doing by subverting the elections. And it's done in different manners in different countries, because we don't use the machines here federally in our elections. They use them in other areas that they do enough to cheat, and then they use like the chain of custody issues to like go in and cheat and so forth here. So there's a number of ways to do it. But at the end of the day, you were working in the elections in 2020. And what is it that you saw?
So I worked with South Dakota canvassers. You can find them on Facebook and X. They are known canvassers, honest people who just want fair elections. And I had heard about other states having concerns about election fraud, and I was like, oh no, that doesn't happen here. I'm going to go canvass and prove them wrong, And to my chagrin, I discovered massive election fraud here, and like including 60 registered voters at a storage facility on the side of a highway. Like, I don't think 60 voters live there. I don't think 60 voters are voting from there. I think that's election fraud. So I wrote, at the time, our Senator, John Thune, a letter, and I expressed my concerns and my, fears of what could be happening. If this much election fraud is going on in, red conservative South Dakota, what how much worse is it other places or whatever? And to my surprise, he wrote me back and called me a conspiracy theorist in the letter, saying that, oh, election fraud is just a conspiracy theory, and basically move on with your life, Mariah. And that kind of was a slap to the face. Like, we're told, there's no taxation without representation. Well, this is not representation. I'm not asking to pay somebody's salary that they don't get taxed on so they can call me names. Well, he's not a prince.
Well, yes, and this is like, my background is mechanical engineering. I'm a technologist, and I got a bachelor of technology. So a lot of things people that do is we will work. You'll see engineers and technologists in much of different fields outside this, because we analyze systems, and systems operate the same way, whether it's a machine, whether it's a system of people or whatever. They all operate fundamentally the same. And when I look at what's happening with the election issues, you cannot have a good outcome if the process is tainted. And when you see problems at every stage, you cannot get a result that's actually going to work when you see failure after failure after failure at every stage, because then the results are going to be skewed, and you can't sit down and say that this is working within the parameters that you want it to set out to be, so that the people actually get representation. And when you're talking, it's one thing if you're talking about a machine, okay, it's not working properly, I got to fix it. But when you're talking about your election system that's going to determine who is ruling the country, that's a critical thing. You can't not have that. So I mean,
Correct.
and when they sit down and say conspiracy theory, I'm sorry, but crimes like this, they're you need conspiracy to
That
commit
is the
them.
conspiracy.
No, but but if okay, for example, like in cat, like if you have two or more people like working together to commit a crime, that's a conspiracy. Like look up
Yes.
any definition in any criminal like code or Title 18 or whether it's here in Canada in the criminal code. Conspiracy is conspiracy, right?
Hmm.
So what else did you see?
So that was then, and then so fast forward to like 2021. I had been having some major, I thought to be vaccine injury symptoms in two of my four children. So, two of my four children have severe uh, emotional disturbance, is what they call it here. Basically, ADHD, ODD, DMDD, any of those diagnoses to where a kid has high levels of energy. I believed that was caused by vaccines. And so that's yet another check on the box against Mariah. So not only am I an election denier conspiracy theorist now, but I'm also thinking that my children have side effects from vaccines. So
Did
that's another negative check against Mariah.
just a question. When your kids got vaccinated, when was it? What vaccines were they given, and when did you start to notice changes?
So my youngest daughter got her MMR late, so she was a little over 2 years old, and she got them in July. And by September, she had a seizure, and then 6 months after that, she had another seizure. So it was 3 months after her MMR vaccines, like the set. So not only just MMR, but it was like DDaP and MMR and one other one I cannot put my finger on at the moment, but I do have the records. Um, and she was at a daycare, and me being the single mom that I was, she had to be flown and life flighted from her daycare to the hospital, because at the hospital that we had, they could not assist her with her seizure. They gave her 7.5 milliliters of Ativan before the seizure stopped. And I beat the helicopter there in my car driving. So they had a lot to do at the hospital before they could take her there. And unfortunately, the doctor at that time, I did not put two and two together that it could possibly be a vaccine injury. I just thought that my child, because they told me that she had two viruses at the same time, entero and norovirus, both at the same time. And I was like, well, where do those viruses come from? And it's just like, oh, well, she could just catch it from daycare or whatever. And so I just blew it off. I didn't think, oh, my child suddenly has a seizure disorder. I thought she caught some viruses, she got a high fever, and the fever caused the seizure. That's what I thought. So then 6 months later, when she had another seizure, at that point I was like, okay, something is wrong. It wasn't just caused by a fever. Something else is going on. They did some tests on her, and they found that she did have some sort of seizure disorder now, but she wasn't tested for a seizure disorder prior to the seizures. So I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know if it was there before her incident with the vaccinations.
Okay, so I mean, but she never had a seizure before the vaccine.
No.
So this is the thing. I mean, and this is where I have an issue with, for example, some of the doctors, because they don't want to admit things like that are right or wrong. I mean, and I guess the consequences were like, I mean, for me, with what I do, if something goes wrong and somebody dies, I go to jail. Right? This like, I mean, if somebody in engineering does something wrong and something like breaks, like, okay, I design an elevator and it's on the 20th floor, the cable snaps because I didn't design it right. They're falling down to the bottom and they're all dying. And guess what? I go to jail. There's a consequence. Doctors don't seem to be
Mm-hmm.
treated the same way, and they get a lot of leeway, which they shouldn't. But then then they don't get to consider things. But when you look at this, they're like, this child was healthy. They had a vaccine and they start having seizures. Well, why not look at what the vaccines are doing and look at what all of the other people who are reporting the same things are doing? Because this is proper investigation. I don't care what the outcome is. I want to know what the problem is, because if there's a problem, then you can fix it rather than gaslighting people and telling them all kinds of nonsense. Because how are you going to know what's happening with kids unless the parents tell you?
Right. They say that the love of money is the root of all evil. I mean, incentives drive outcomes. If your incentives are you get more money for, the more amount of people that come into your clinic because of all the side effects of all the, you know, things that we demanded you give them in order to go to school or whatever the case may be, like the incentives drive the outcome. So if you don't want people doing nefarious things for money, you have to incentivize doing good things for money.
Yes, you should. And you incentivize the good things and you punish the bad things, right? So you want to have a
Correct.
deterrent for
Accountability.
doing what's wrong, and you want to reward doing what's right. And if they did that, things would go a lot better. I just want to kind of go back a little bit before, because we didn't get on this more before we continue. Just want to shift back to when you were looking at the stuff for the elections. You said that you saw people in the, like, on the registered to a place to the side of the road, 60 people. What else did you find, and what other steps did you take other than writing to Senator Thune?
So basically, the canvassing was quite an adventure. So you basically have lists of the voter rolls, and so you have to check the address and then go and see if that person actually lives there, and combine or compare the list to what is actually in real time. So the 60 registered voters at a storage facility, that was just like one of the most extreme, but there were many others on the list, and it was 6 years ago, so I can't really remember all of them. But it was blatant that efforts had not been put in to secure the voter rolls before the election, and then the messed up voter rolls are used for the election, and then they're cleaned up afterwards. You know, and it just goes to show that those algorithms are just filling in the blanks. And it goes to show, like I told you in the commissioners meeting today, they have a packet where they took the test for these machines. The test spits out a random answer of what the election could be, but then yet 3 days later, when we actually have the election, every single set of numbers is exactly the same as the tabulator. No, that's not okay.
No, it's not. If you're running an algorithm, you should not have that happen, because it's supposed to randomize the things. And if you're going to do random tests, you're going to have multiple tests that pull out different
Numbers.
things under different scenarios, so that
Yes.
you want to see that no matter how many different places, you're going to get within a certain range and understand how this is functioning, because you're not going to have the same result all the time. Nowhere will this ever happen in real life, and
No.
it shouldn't happen in an algorithm that you're using to replicate results like this. It's just not reasonable. Um, what I want you to understand is that when you have the list of people voting, the voter rolls, if you have more people on those voter rolls, that's how you can then get more people to vote that aren't there. Because, I mean, there was dead people that were on voter rolls. They were like, I mean, more people, like you said, 60 people in a storage facility, and all of these types of things. This is how you introduce error into the system and allow cheating. Normally, under normal circumstances, this number is very small because no matter how much you try, you're going to get a little couple of slip through the cracks. But it's small enough that it doesn't make a difference. When it's like less than 1%, then it doesn't affect the outcome for the most part, because you have to, like, when you look at an election, they have to cover the standard, like the error rate, right? So if you have you have to be so much above the margin of error, because if you're within the margin of error, then it should trigger things like recounts and everything else like that to make sure that this is actually going to be the way it is, because, well, it's in the margin of error. We just want to double check that we didn't overlook anything so that this takes place. This is what is supposed to happen. But when you don't do this and like leave all of those people on there, that opens the door for downstream harm, and it ultimately affects the outcome and the things that people can do to cheat.
Yep. And then you have the same senator saying that it's somebody else's fault that they can't get this law passed that's going to ensure the elections are safe. It's kind of, we're not as stupid as you think we are, buddy. We see that you stole your election and you're a thief of your election. And if we had honest elections, then you wouldn't be there.
And yeah, speaking of that, like with what my daughter was talking about at the beginning when she was talking about the petitions, this is something where you can address this there. And people talk about going through Congress. Now, when a lot of people went and reported things, and like as we're getting into how people got retaliation and the courts were shutting this down and protecting people that were doing this, and they were using procedure to shield looking into these areas. This is a denial of constitutional rights, because you cannot have a Republican form of government without actually understanding if your elections are transparent. This is a national security issue, and it's a critical infrastructure issue. So when we put that information, and then like we were talking offline, like I had Tina Peters' evidence in there because she signed a petition in Colorado before she went to jail and was denied her right to petition for redress of grievances, along with other people that signed it, myself included, because of what happened to me in Colorado. This I put this into the federal one because she was in jail. But at the end of the day, it was relevant because it was connected to what happened to me. And so this demonstrates, and that COVID was used for a massive election fraud. And I don't care what anybody says, this is not conspiracy. When I look at what happened, and I look at it objectively, and I can guarantee you, because Democrats, if you look at what Democrats have said, and they've reported these same types of issues in elections.
Kamala Harris herself on a congressional record said these machines can steal the votes.
And even with the way that they use the different things, like they had that report that Jimmy Carter did after the identical issues that Republicans are talking about are the same issues that they identified, right? And when you look at Bernie Sanders' primary, I mean, they like
stolen.
Okay, I'm not that big of a fan of Bernie Sanders, but he's not Hillary Clinton, right? And so they're using these things to subvert even within their own parties. So this is not a Republican Democrat issue. This is a bipartisan issue. This is how the country works issue. And so this is now a political question because the judges who are supposed to be restraining this are allowing it to continue. And that's why this is why we went after the judicial branch under Article 4, Section 4. And that's like civil rights movement type of intervention is what's necessary.
2.0. I agree. It's unfortunate because they claim one thing, but like what they're saying is the actual opposite of what they're actually doing.
Yes.
And in so many different realms and areas and aspects, like everyone is just a liar. Like truth telling is like frowned upon, and those who tell the truth are like this big, and those who are liars are like this big.
Well, and this is what most people don't understand. And I wish the people in January 6th understood this. The right to petition for redress of grievances is a specific manner. From when I looked this up, for when the time the Constitution was written, it's a written form of process of what we did, and then you have to go in, and it's your right to have it heard. And the people are the ones who determine its urgency, not the government,
Mm-hmm.
the people, right? You can't force them on the outcome of it, but they have to read it in and then deliberate what needs to be done with it. And when you have a situation
Right.
like this, they would
Remedy.
have to bring people in to discuss it, right? And so
Yeah.
this is what is there for, and this is where people need to come together because their country's at stake, right? Like, and so forth, and all of these things that are issues that are there. But getting back to your situation here, let's fast forward. Your kids. So you started to sit down and say, okay, I think that my kids are having issues because of the vaccines. And they're having behavioral problems, they're having seizures and so forth that started after vaccination. And this was two of your kids this
Yes.
happened to?
Yes, two of my four, my actually two middle ones. So I have an older child who doesn't. My oldest son and my youngest daughter do, and then my youngest son doesn't.
But the two of them started to have problems after they were vaccinated.
Yep. And so in 2021, I had gotten a hold of what we have here called the Black Hills Children's Home. And it's basically like a behavioral therapy location where they live for a while. It's kind of like a camp where they go and they have therapy services and psychological services and groups and just different things to help them with those behavior struggles that they were having at home. And during that time while they were there was when my husband and I started dating, and my oldest daughter and my youngest son just absolutely fell in love with him. We actually brought my two middles home for a Thanksgiving break while they were there. And my daughter unfortunately had one of her episodes where she just was raging and refusing to listen. We actually had to call the Black Hills Children's Home to come assist us to get her back there. And she ended up kicking him in the ribs, and he had to go to the hospital for a dislocated rib. Fast forward to 2023, my oldest son, they had said that they could provide him all the services that they could, and he had improved so much that they felt like he could come and join back into the community and go back to school and that type of thing. And for a little while he was doing really well until his sister unfortunately had to come back home from so the Black Hills Children's Home said that they could do all that they could for her, so they emergency discharged her to the Sioux Falls Children's Home, which is across the state. So we drove her with assist following us to this new home, which is supposed to be intensive. They basically have a padded room there. Like, it was way more high needs, we were told, and they would be able to help her with her issues. Well, they gave her 42 days and called us and said that they had to emergency discharge her from there and send her back home.
Okay,
So we drove.
Sorry, before you go on, I just have to do a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Just
Yes.
hold on to that thought.
Perio, co-founder of Mark37.com. I spent my career in Silicon Valley working for high-tech infrastructure companies, and I've witnessed firsthand the surveillance apparatus they've built. Most of you already know we're in a digital war right now, but are you really aware that we're trying to fight this war with the weapons and tools of the enemy? That Android or iPhone in your pocket, that MacBook or Windows laptop? It's a tracking device feeding everything you say and do to companies that want you under their control or eliminated entirely. Every text, call, location, even how long you pause on a post, they track it all and use complex algorithms to then use this data to manipulate your behavior. If you knew someone hacked your devices and was selling your data without your consent, you'd be furious and terrified. So why are you okay with these companies doing this to you right now? Here's what they don't want you to know. There is another way. At mark37.com, we offer phones, laptops, tablets, and even basic flip phones, all running systems big tech can't access unless you explicitly give them access. And what's even better is you also don't need to sacrifice productivity. I'm one of thousands of geeks mobilized across this country, building tools and providing education and support to help you live anonymously online before they enforce digital ID. Go to mark37.com. Sign up for a free 30-minute digital privacy consultation. Join hundreds of thousands who have decided to stop feeding their data to companies actively working to enslave us. Take back your communications. Take back your data. And may God bless you on your journey.
And if you go to mark37.com, I got one of my phones. If you go there, you'll get a 5% discount if you use the promo code CARIS. Use the code CARIS and get 5% off. And, if you want to have other ways to support, you can see the links in the ticker. You can go to mypillow.com/CARIS and use a promo code CARIS. Get yourself some good stuff, support a good cause. Or there's the Give, Send, Go, or the donor box as well. And also, we have a new website up at the CARIS Project. So you can go and look at some of these things there as well. It's still under construction, but you will be able to see the petitions and download them if you want to take them in to your local Congress. Yes. Go ahead. So back to what we were saying. You want to just continue?
Yeah, so after the Sioux Falls Children's Home emergency discharged her and sent her back home to us, we were kind of searching throughout the country for maybe like a different facility that might be able to assist her and provide the higher level of care that these multiple facilities have said that she needed, including Oregon, just many different states. But then in, I want to say August, so about 2 months after we brought her home from Sioux Falls, against my motherly instincts even, we contacted CPS because I was basically at a loss. My son had regressed back to the negative behaviors that he had prior to going to the children's home when his sister came back.
Yes.
And it just felt like we were just every, therapy or just different options that we would try here. They have different boys and girls clubs. They would be kicked out of those, like just different walls, hitting a lot of walls in our search to find what our kiddos needed.
So,
well, sorry, what?
So you were trying to go and get the help that you needed for your child, and you weren't getting the help from the government agencies that were supposed to help.
Correct. So then August 2023, the way that they said that they would be able to help my daughter, because she was my highest concern, was my daughter. She was the one who was being the most unsafe for herself and others around her in the community. So they said the only way that they would be able to help her is if we left her at the hospital. They did not say that they would have to contact the police. They did not say that they would be starting an abuse and neglect investigation about her on us. They just said that we had to leave her at the hospital. And I like I said, it was not my first choice to get my daughter the help that she needed, but it was an option where I could find none. And 2 months later, so they had her and they held her in hotel rooms and different places at the department. They would have her stay the night at social services department.
What?
And
Why?
after 2 months, when they found,
Why were they doing this?
because her behaviors were so out of control that they did not have a home that would take her. They had volunteers that promised to assist them during this time of them trying to help her, and they gave up after 24 hours.
Okay. And so what did they do with the kids?
So after 2 months, in November, they said they found no abuse or neglect, and they gave our daughter back to us.
And
so we're like, that doesn't really help us. We weren't asking you to find abuse or neglect. We weren't saying that we abused or neglected our child. We were saying our child needs help. But okay, so we just continued chugging along on the same path that we were on 2 months before that, trying to find our daughter some help. And in the meantime, she had rages, like Hulk strength, out of control, having to be restrained, like having 6 police officers have to see what has to be done in order to prevent her from jumping off of second-story balconies and windows, like out of control behaviors, running to Walmart and climbing the ball thing before anybody could catch her, like out of control.
So they don't know what the cause of this is. What did they diagnose your daughter with?
DMDD, ODD. Her latest diagnosis is conduct disorder at 12.
But I mean, what really is all of that mean? That's great. They slap a label on it, but why is it happening? Right? Like
they can't tell me, and it's neurological damage caused by poisons that I was forced to give her in order for her to go to school. Like she is the poster child of vaccine injury. Like, she was a sweet, joy in her eyes, loving little girl prior to that first seizure, Dale. And after that seizure, she was not the same. And I am not the only mama or daddy who has said this about kiddos who have had vaccine injury seizures.
Yeah,
or vaccine injury symptoms. Like, they were a certain way, they had the seizure or the symptom, and now they're a completely different way.
I've heard this many times. Many parents say this, and this is where, when you're sitting down as a medical professional, when people are telling you these things over and over again, you have an obligation to listen, because random people that are saying the same thing without having any connection to each other, you have to begin to sit down and say, okay, there's a problem.
This is the plan.
Let's figure out what this issue is, because if the parents are saying, well, I took my kid in, they got vaccinated, and then within not long after, all of these things started to happen, which never happened before, you have to begin to sit down and say, what do all of these people have in common? That they all have in common. Because you can sit down and say, well, it's a multiple bunch of factors. But when you have a bunch of random people under different circumstances, the thing they have in common is the vaccine. This is where you have to start looking at. This is proper investigative techniques.
Yeah, and they just... the bottom dollar, that's what it boils down to, is we have literal people who think that we need less people on the earth, people who think that people with special needs are fair game to themselves, people who think that dealing with paying foster families thousands of dollars a month for kids that where their original family didn't get the funding or the assistance that they asked for when they asked for it. Like, something isn't quite equating in this equation.
Yes. And so after they did all of this, when they said, okay, well, there's nothing going on, they gave your kid back. What ended up happening after that? What did they do after that?
So like I told you, my daughter was having those rage incidents, and the police ended up telling us to stop taking her to the hospital because they weren't going to help her. The behavioral hospital here is only short-term crisis care center. It's not really a behavioral hospital, even though they say they are. And any of the places that worked with kids only helped them if they were 12 years and up. So my daughter was basically in this limbo of no assistance locally, and 60 facilities throughout the country have turned her down. So April 2024, due to her high stress environment that she caused in the household, the cats started acting out and started utilizing her things for their excrements. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I tried to explain to her, cats are very, they pick up on your stress. So if you're stressed out, they stress out even more. But in order to prevent them from pottying on your stuff, we can put a kitty box in there. But we need to make sure that's all that it's used for. And she made a promise that, and that's what they would use it for. I went to grab something from the store, and I got back, and the cat litter was all over the floor, and my daughter was screaming out of control. She had made a promise, and she broke her promise when mommy left. And the police ended up coming and taking my husband away. My daughter ended up going to the Juvenile Services Center, and I believe she stayed there, I want to say, nearly 180 days. They kept her, a judge kept her at the Juvenile Services Center for nearly 6 months while we continued to search for a facility to, or something, a facility or an aide or a nurse or a doctor, like any specific helper that we could find for my daughter. And there wasn't any child abuse charges during that incident that occurred. But then fast forward to 2025, where there was an incident with my son where we come to find out that CPS workers had been visiting with our children in secret at school without our permission for the past 6 months. And I thoroughly believe they coerced children to disobey the lawful orders of their home in order to get their stepdad out of the home. Because in the reports that CPS shared those meetings about that they had in secret at school, they didn't share it with me at the time, but they shared it with the judge that they met him at school, where they asked him if his life would be better if his stepdad wasn't in it.
They asked the child that?
Yes.
That's and a leading question.
Removing, they don't care. They're lawbreakers. They don't care. After 21 days of removing my children after the second incident, which ended up to be a false arrest, 21 days before I had my first visit, the very first thing out of my oldest two's mouth is, wow, you really need better taste in men. And I said, wow, I'm really sorry that adults feel like they can have that sort of conversation with children, but that is highly inappropriate, and that is not something that they need to be talking with you about.
But I get it. They might have some personality conflicts, but your husband wasn't abusing the children. So what?
No,
Like
no.
that's
My husband was trying to maintain order in a chaotic home.
yeah. So the so then okay. So what do they do after that? Now after they've come in there and talked to the children, what ended up happening to your kids?
So the temporary removal lasted 14 months before I could have an evidentiary hearing. And at the evidentiary hearing, after 14 months, CPS workers perjured themselves, lawyers perjured themselves, like prosecutors lied, like just no, there's no order in this court, okay? Like this is a lawless court. The judge heard them lie, heard me call them out for their lies, and still said it wouldn't have mattered if my husband left, if he was now my ex-husband, it wouldn't have mattered if he left 6 months ago, he still would take my children from me. His mind was already made up before the court even started. He took my full, he dismissed my youngest son's case, which he has a different dad than my oldest three. So they dismissed his case with my parental rights intact and sent him 1,600 miles away to live with his father, who had only seen him 9 times in his 6-year-old life, was over $50,000 behind in child support, and told me to slap the shit out of him when he was 3 years old so he didn't turn out like his brother and sister, and to let him know how that went.
But why is it?
And I told CPS this. I told CPS both of these informations, that he was not safe and that he was not current on his child support, and they didn't care. They dismissed my case with my parental rights intact from my son and gave him to him 1,700 miles away.
So they took the child from you, even though they withdrew to take away your parental rights, and then decided that the child should go to the father, who has not been there for a long time, and they didn't give you any reason.
Ever. Yeah, no reason. Just because, no imminent danger. I wasn't arrested. I wasn't charged. I wasn't convicted. I invited these people into my home freely. I have recordings where I said that I would not let him in the house if there was a protection order, and they lied and said that I did, that I would let him in.
So
And I showed them the recordings, and they're like, "We're not going to talk about that right now."
So what did the judge give? What reason did the judge give for ordering this?
This is unknown.
Pardon?
This is unknown. I'm not.
The judge didn't write any reason why they decided to do what they did.
He hasn't signed the order. The order was February or April 17th. He hasn't even signed the order, so I can't even see it.
So they took your child and moved them away without an actual order.
So my let me tell you, my youngest son, they were removed from me, all of them, all 4 were removed from me in February 4th, 2025. Okay?
Yes.
On January 15th, 2026, a new judge, because my old judge retired in the middle of my case, a new judge, seeing me in the courtroom for the very first time on January 15th, took what the state said about my son and did what they said. So dismiss his case with my parental rights intact, even though they told him that he has full legal and physical custody. That's a lie. My parental rights are still intact. And sent him to Kentucky. Like he was already in Kentucky, but like left him to live in Kentucky since August. And I've been cut off. Like he says, if I want contact with my son, then I need to get a lawyer.
Who said this?
His dad.
Why? For what purpose? No, I mean it doesn't
You
make
want his number? You could ask him. He has treated ever since I told him I was pregnant with this child. He denied that he was his. He told me to get an abortion. He told me that since I was a single mom and trying to raise my kids on my own, that he was going to fight me for him for custody. So basically, the state of South Dakota has allowed him to take a threat from 7 years ago, 8 years ago now, and bring it into fruition.
Yeah, I get that. Like, I mean, the courts in my case, they saw that my ex threatened to do all of these things to take my kid and all this kind of stuff, and they just did it anyway. But I mean, as punishment, and like, I mean, I had, I mean, judges blocked me from bringing in evidence, or I'd file evidence, and they would go back in and they would just unfile the evidence, which I'm like, how do you even do that? But that's the type of things that go on, and there's a due process element that needs to be looked at, that people don't understand, that kids need to have liberty, and for children to have liberty, you have to hear from their parents, and their parents have to be heard from, like, I mean, properly. Otherwise you don't have due process, because if the parents are restricted from speaking, then the children don't get proper due process. And this is what people fail to understand. Judges don't account for this, and they don't account for, when you take away a child from the parents, the downstream harm that you cause them when you do these types of things. And they don't feel like this is it's terrible, because they don't know what the outcome of the harm is until much later, and kids don't, a lot of the times, they don't realize what is happening, they can't articulate it, and then they have problems later in life as a result.
Yeah, and then you're 25 or 26 and pregnant with your second child, and you finally find your dad who was stolen from you when you were 5 years old, and then 3 months later he dies.
And you have, yeah, that's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. And so you had a similar experience with Child and Family Service or Child Protective Services yourself. You want to touch a little bit on that, since
Yeah, so my mother basically alienated my father from me and my siblings when we were 5, or when I was 5, sorry. And he basically coerced her to bring us to South Dakota from Florida. And a couple years later, an incident with my sister occurred, and where we actually had to talk to some police officers ourselves. And at that point, I didn't have any history to share. Like, things had happened, but my memories of them were not there correctly. Like, my memories were, I don't know how to describe it, like broken memories, I guess. And so I didn't have anything to tell them at the time when they talked to me, but my sister did. And at the time, the perpetrator that she was talking about wasn't arrested, wasn't taken to jail, wasn't removed from the home, none of that. And then life just went on. Well, fast forward to 3 years after that, things had started coming to memory, and my sister had actually shared it with somebody at her school. And then so the sheriff, the school counselor, and a DSS worker came and took me out of my class and asked me questions in the counselor's office. I was removed from my home that day. I don't think he was arrested ever, but was removed, for some time, because we were taken in October. In November, I went to my house to have a birthday party where I was coerced by an adult to take my story back so I didn't ruin my family for the rest of my life. And 2 months after that, was put back into my home to later be raped. So these people are taught to listen to whatever a kid says. Like, it doesn't matter who told them to say it or where they learned it or where they heard it from. It's just whatever the kid says is what they're told to believe. So if a child knows better, they're 15 or 16, they can just lie to you and you're just going to take them at their word without inspecting or investigating that what they're saying is true. But yet when I was 14 and I just said that it was all a lie, you're just going to take that as true and put me back into an abusive, like,
they're not, a lot of people are not looking at the circumstances in the case, and they're putting a lot of wrong people into these situations. Like, for example, if there's, like a man that's doing the abusing or is responsible, they should have men dealing with that, because a lot of the things that the men are doing, the women will miss them. It's just the way it is, because they're different.
Yep.
And if women are doing things, they should have women dealing with that, because they understand what women do, but they don't do this very often, and they don't do it efficiently. They don't take into effect that children are coerced and so forth, and that they don't look at the things, that the markers that you would look to see if somebody's telling the truth or lying, because it's not that difficult to find out. Because if you ask certain types of questions, if you're lying, you won't be able to recall that information because you're making up a narrative. But because I deal with a lot of victims of trafficking, people who've had their kids in bad situations, all that kind of stuff. And when I ask people questions about situations that they remember, if I ask them things, they'll bring that information back to memory. They just don't, they're traumatized and they're focused on their trauma. But if I ask them about the surrounding areas, they're going to be able to tell me, describe it to me, because they were there. Yeah. And they're like, oh, well, I didn't think of that. Well, no kidding, you didn't think of that because you were traumatized and you were trying to think about, how can I get rid of this thing that's bothering me?
Survive.
Right?
Yeah.
So they can definitely find out when people are telling the truth or lying, but they're not taking the time to actually properly invest.
Yeah, so then fast forward to the summer of 2023, he was under investigation for not properly caring for her, while also under investigation for certain things involving children from Florida in the 90s. And he passed away from a heart attack, missed call from the phone number, which is also the coroner. So it's the it's the investigations number and the coroner. So my mom was in the hospital where he's under investigation for her because she was found not in good condition, but also was under investigation on a different track pertaining to stuff in Florida, and then passed away from a heart attack. So he got his justice, God, got whatever happened there happened, but my mom is still alive. So
the way I look at it is this: yes, God, ultimately everybody faces justice from God, but people need to face justice before them, because evil prevails because good men fail to do nothing, fail to act. They do nothing and they allow it to happen. And this is the problem. The issue is that men are not doing what they should. And I don't care what anybody says, when it comes down to protecting, men are the ones who do it better than anybody else. And they'll go and lay down their lives for their families, and which they should, to protect them. We're not seeing that. And this is the reason why there's too many men that are like, they have no testicles. They cucks. They're just spineless that allow this to happen.
Sold out.
Or they go and they say, let the women handle this. And I just want to, I want to do bad things that I have to repent of, because when I hear this, because I'm like, you're a man. It's like with my daughter. I don't want to put her in a situation. She's in a situation because there was no other choice, or she was forced in that situation. But I wouldn't put a woman, that, especially my wife, if I was married, say, you go out and deal with this threat, and I'll just sit back and wait. What are you, nuts?
Mm-mm.
Like, this is, but then again, when men don't have families in our society where they're breaking families down, if men don't have families, they're irresponsible. And I used to work for a guy, and he was like, I only normally hire married men, but you have a kid, so you have a responsibility. And when men have more responsibility, they become more responsible. If they're not, they watch young men that aren't
And
married.
when funding isn't going to companies that, oh, I think I had a glitch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I was saying, I've heard a lot lately about USAID. Have you heard about like the USAID funding getting cut off? A lot of things that people have dealt with in their lives in the past 2 or 3 decades were based on false assumptions on things that USAID was funding, like the deadbeat dads, quote unquote, stereotype was basically being funded by USAID. Like they're funding, promoting dads not taking care of their kids.
Yes, and they also, for example, manufacture it, right? Because the fathers that are involved, they do everything. The system does everything they can to destroy them and keep them from their kids, right? Like, I mean,
Yep.
like, I mean, like people run around like with it, I have people tell me that, oh, well, some people are saying, oh, well, you don't go and see your kid, you have the opportunity to see your kid. I was like, really? Where? How? Right? I'm like, I have no way of contacting them. Like somebody just even tried to say, oh, well, you can use the guardian ad litem. I'm like, we don't have those in Canada, but that's a nice try though.
We have them here, and their CEO is in on it.
Well,
she's literally one of the ones gang stalking me.
This is the whole point. What you're seeing is the worst parent is getting the child. This is what's happening across the board. And when you sit down and you
or
see
no parent.
Pardon?
I said, or no parent.
Yes.
Like, my oldest daughter was with two foster dads, and one of them was a teacher who was her teacher before she got taken out of her home. And when she decided that she didn't want to be in that home anymore, he tried to tell her the grass is not greener on the other side. I said, excuse me? Yes, it is. If my daughter doesn't want to be in your homosexual freaking home anymore, then that is her choice.
But they said the grass is not greener on the other side, so then why did they take them out of your house?
Yeah, exactly. But that was a foster family. Like that, everybody likes to say that South Dakota is this conservative, like, goody, like, constitutional abiding state. No. You've been sold a bill of goods about South Dakota. We are literally a communist state.
Red states, and like same here with the conservative provinces here in Canada, they appear to be good, but the corruption is just as bad as in democratic states.
Or worse.
Yes, because I've watching dealing with some people in Texas, and the judges are a damn cartel, and they are out of control.
It's everywhere.
Out of control.
It's everywhere. We watch court watchers like in Alabama and stuff, and they're literally like, it is a racket of drugging people and then complaining about the symptoms that they get when you put them on the drugs that you told them to get on to fix the like it's like a never-ending cycle of drugging zombies.
This is how this whole issue, this is how this whole thing is. They create a problem and then blame you for it. And then they give you an even worse solution for the problem that they created.
It's exactly communism.
It's the same thing like with you talking about the vaccine injury to your children. They caused the problem. They blame you for the solution, refuse to help, and then blame you for it, and then you pay in the end. But whose fault was it in the first place? It was there, and you're watching
Their damn fault in the first place.
But you watch this happen with all of these parents that were complaining about their children being vaccinated, and look what's happening to the people who were vaccinated from the COVID vaccine. Look at what's they're getting treated no different. No different. They're like, well, too bad. They gaslight them, say all this kind of stuff. You know, they bring them out, talk, and do that, and then after that, nothing happens. I'm of the mind that until people go to prison, and people who get like prosecuted for like deprivation of rights under color of law and get executed for it, this is not going to stop. It's not.
Nope.
And you need consequences, hard consequences.
Yep. For sure. Yeah, I've spoken at county commissioner meetings a couple times, and after 2 days later, there was an emergency hearing by the judge, ordered by the state's attorney, because I'm exposing their crimes at the county commissioners meeting. So they're like, stop talking about this at the county commissioners meeting. Stop posting this on your Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Do I stop? No. Do they arrest me? No. Because I'm not committing a crime.
No, I mean, sometimes they'll try to make stuff up where they can, but they mean at the end of the day, at this point in time, I don't care. I don't care. I'm like, you took my kid. Right?
He who saves his country breaks no law.
Well, exactly. I'm like, you took my kid to punish me for trying to protect people's lives. Like, you punished me because you wanted to kill people. I'm sorry, but you're not going to do that. You steal kids and you're killing people for profit. Yep. I'm sorry, I would rather be dead than live in a world like this. So I'm not going to stop until I win and the people win, or I die trying. So there's no other way. I can't live in peace with people that do this. There's no peace.
Our Pennington County Sheriff Brian Mueller, I have a video of me having a conversation with him where he literally is telling me child trafficking is just part of the system. That's my sheriff who sat in the back of the county commissioners meetings when I'm talking about the love of money is the root of all evil. He tells me that child trafficking is just part of the system, and if I want my kids back, I need to go pay into the system that's raping myself and my children.
Oh. I mean...
That's my sheriff.
I mean... Oh. People like that, I mean, this is why the death penalty needs to be applied to people in positions of power. I'm not even kidding. Because when you're in a position of power of law enforcement, or you're like a judge and things like that, you should get the maximum punishment by virtue of your position. Because you cannot go ahead, you cannot do these types of things, and nobody has immunity from crime. I don't care what anybody says. That's nonsense. Right? And this is
CPS workers do. I mean, you say nobody does, but I'm watching them.
No, I'm saying they do it because of their mafia tactics, but they don't actually lawfully have immunity. They only go after people and they punish them like they do for, like, you go and challenge the mob and they're going to come after you. This is how this happens. But this is where the people have to sit down and say enough's enough. And they need to pressure.
Yeah, it's our duty to rebel. It's our duty. It's our job.
But it's to the elected officials are the ones that need to feel the most pressure, because under the way that the U.S. Constitution, the elected officials represents the will of the people. The executive is the sword, right? And the courts are judgment. So the legislative is literally the hand that holds the sword. That is why they need all of the pressure. Well, this is where they have not received enough pressure. They need to receive enough pressure that they have to worry about disappointing the people because they're not getting enough resistance. They're not.
On that note, did you see Scott Pressler at the South Dakota GOP convention video? Did you see that?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, well, you should look it up, because those of us on the grassroots that are trying to inform the people are getting blocked out. Like Scott Pressler did. He had a ticket for this dinner. He was just going to go and observe. He wasn't even going to say anything negative about anybody. He was just going to go in there and observe Thune speaking and Mark Wayne Mullen speaking at the South Dakota GOP convention, right? His staff, put a dossier, basically, a crappy picture of Scott on the table by the door with terrible things about him that are not true, that were posted publicly in a group and then shared in an email chain. So they have this picture that says, don't let him in, don't let him in, don't let him in. Because those of us who do speak out about the truth about you guys are fooled, like things are not the way they seem, they literally block us out.
You know where they can't block you out?
Where?
The government buildings. They can't block you from that. They can't. You show up at their congressional office, they can't block you. Yet you didn't.
Like in DC?
Or even in your local congressional office, they can't block you from going in there. Unless you try to kill them, they can't block you from going in there, right? Like, you have a right. You can go in there and say what you want. You can walk in and film and do whatever you want. They don't like you doing it in congressional offices, but they can't stop you because they're the government. You're doing a public job, right? That right. So this is where people need to pressure them, because going to those GOP events, they're considered private because it's a corporation that runs it and it's a corporate event. But the public offices, they can't tell you. That's where they need to get it, and they need to get it like crazy. They need to get to where they're dreading coming to work because somebody's going to be in their face. What are you doing about this? Do your damn job or get out, right? That's really it. Either you're going to do your job or you're going to get out. And we're going to get somebody in that will do their job, and you're going to get consequences for not doing your job. So that's up to you. That's really how this goes. I
have vast visions of traveling the country and speaking at all the commission meetings and going to all the Capitol buildings and just spreading the word, because too many people are just asleep with their heads in the sand, and they don't even realize that, like, the liberties that they grew up having are not going to be there for much very longer if they don't freaking step up.
Well, you're going to be like what we're going through here in Canada, where they basically pass laws and say that we don't have any freedom of speech anymore. We don't have religious freedom because if we say the wrong thing, they're going to come in and start jailing people, right? And calling it hate speech. This is nonsense, right? Sorry. This kind of stuff has to stop. And at the end of the day, if you can't have elections, you're cooked. If you can't protect your kids, you're cooked. And if you can't have any investigation or any right over what happens to your own body when it comes to medicine, you're cooked, right? Like,
so
sorry,
stick a fork in us. We're freaking done.
But I'm so over all of this. I'm beyond caring about anything, any lawful path to getting this done. I'm okay with, as long as these people get the consequences that are coming to them, because I'm a Christian.
Due to them.
And I believe in God, and God has a law. He says, if you transgress my law, you will die. So if you don't follow God's law, the penalty is death. But God gives us grace. Does it make me free to break the law? No, it doesn't. Right? Because he's like, I like what he says, and he's going to make me more like him. Sure, I'm not perfect, but I'm better than I was before. And that's the whole idea.
Yep.
We're sitting down and having people breaking the law without penalty, and that is insanity. And until we get consequences, and I don't care about people's, like, their policy issues. You killed people, you're going to jail. You raped kids, you're going to jail. You helped kids get raped, you're going to jail. I don't care. And if you get executed, I don't care either, because if you're a pedophile or you're helping pedophiles, you're all the same. And you need the same punishment. And once this type of stuff happens, sure, will it ever go away? No, but we're not going to have people rampantly taking children using government agencies to do it. They need to have, once you start executing judges and they get tried and executed for their capital crimes, you're gonna start seeing them acting differently, knowing that there's accountability.
Yep. Once it's not taboo anymore, once people are like, okay, now they mean business, I think it'll eventually, the pendulum has to swing the other way for a while. I think we've been way too far to the sinful nature, fleshly nature for too long. I don't want a Sodom and Gomorrah moment where God just like strikes us all down. Like, I don't want that.
Because if you're allowing people to get killed and trafficked and people to die and people to profit from this, and you're a judge, you need to be tried, and when found convicted, executed. Because you have the highest responsibility out of anybody in any country to make sure that the Constitution is followed and the laws are upheld, and you're not. And if you're worried
it's
about
literally
doing that,
the Book of Judges playing over again.
Yes, and if you're worried about doing this, then don't be a judge. Let somebody else who can handle the
Get a different job.
Exactly. I'm so over this.
Same.
I'm sorry. This stuff, it disgusts me. I can't stand this kind of stuff. It drives me insane. I cannot stand this wicked.
Yeah, I cry every day about all the kids, all the babies that are not okay.
This is how you destroy countries, by stealing people's children. This is literally how you destroy countries. So where are you at right now after my little rant? I'm sorry. Where are you at right now? What's happening with you?
Well, I actually spoke at the county commissioners meeting today, so we'll see if I have any hearings coming up soon. I'm basically just submitting to God. I'm just trusting God that regardless of my circumstances, He has a plan. Regardless of what terrible things have happened to me as a child, He can use that for good to prevent those things from happening to somebody else in the future. I've always had that outlook. Like, a lot of people had like pain or suffering or anger towards God, and I've always just, He actually saved me while I was in foster care. So I've actually felt His presence holding me throughout all of my difficult times in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of want to be a light to show other people, like, yeah, crappy things happen, but God has a plan for your life. And when you submit to Him and you're obedient, He blesses you, regardless of the circumstance. Like, I can cry every day and miss my kids, but I know that God still loves me.
Yes. Yes. And people have to understand that, and I think that people need to turn to God for this kind of help, like to help in these situations. And this is a terrible situation, and I think that people need to be more aware of what is going on and so forth. But before, I know we're running up here on time, but I just wanted to ask you, before we close down, what do you want to say to people, and how can they help you, and how can they reach you?
What do I want to say to people? I would say the number one thing is, for me, is the golden rule. It's in the Bible. It's treat others how you want to be treated, not how you think they should treat you. A lot of what we're dealing with in this country has to do with putting anything above God. And I think if we put God in the center again, I think a lot of different things and ripple effects will go back in order, because God's plan is perfect and true. And I think those of us who want better for the world and want peace in the world, the only way that you're going to find that is with God. And then where you can find me, I'm Mariah Danielson Cranny on Facebook. I'm x.com/TRU_TH prevails 1 on X. And I have a YouTube. It's Truth Prevails 387. And I think those are all the places you can find me. Thanks for having me on today. It's been a joy talking about everything with someone other than myself and my husband.
No worries. Thanks for coming on. And everybody, give her a follow and support what she's doing, and support these people in doing these types of things in your local communities, because something needs to get done, because we cannot keep going down this path.
Can I give you my Cash App? Because I would love to have funding to travel the country and speak at commissioners' meetings. If anybody could.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Mariah-C85.
All right. So if you want to support her, please do. I mean, people need to get stuff done. We're in a bad situation as it is, and some serious changes has to happen. And I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say it. Men, you need to step up your game. The reason why we're in this situation is because men are acting like pussies, and they are not being men, and they need to stop being cowards and take a look in the mirror and look at the world around you and blame yourself for it, because you can't expect the women to go and beat a bunch of men, right? That's just unfair. So you need to get your head in the game and do something. I'm sick and tired of this, and I'm watching men sitting down and crying and complaining. I just want to slap them upside their head and say, find your spine and go to work. And if you don't know what to do, go pray to God. He'll fix your cowardice. I'm so done with this. I am beyond done with this, because hurt feelings, complaining about hurt feelings, don't stop people from raping kids. And as a man, you need to be worried about stopping the guys that are going to rape your kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to close here with a prayer, because we need some prayer in this place right now. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, your grace, your mercy. Lord, we thank you for the hope that you have given us and sending your Son to die for our sins. And Lord, I ask of you this day for us to turn away from our wickedness and to fall on our knees and repent and to call on the name of the Lord. And Lord, I ask of you this day to help the men, that they would submit themselves to God, that we would lead by example and remember what it is to walk according to the light that you have given us. And help the men and the women to come together to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, and our nation, that we can have some protection from the children from this evil wickedness, is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And thank you guys all for coming, and like, share, and subscribe, and make sure this information gets out.